Good evening. You're watching I-24 News. We begin in the West Bank, where the IDF is surrounding Beit Ora Tahta as two Palestinians have been identified as the assailants in today's stabbing attack. A 22-year-old from Beit Or and 16-year-old from Kalandia. Two Israeli females were injured in the attack. A 23-year-old who is fighting for her life in critical condition and a 58-year-old suffering light injuries in the settlement of Beit Oron. Reports suggest the two attackers jumped over a fence near a grocery store and began stabbing the women. Upon escape, they were shot and killed by security on site. Police investigators also found 3 improvised pipe bombs in the area. And we're now joined by senior defense analyst for Haaretz, Amir Oren. Good evening.
Good evening, Michal.
So, Amir, besieging the village hasn't been a typical response to stabbing attacks. Why has Israel chosen to react in this manner?
Indeed, only last week, the defense chief, IDF chief of staff, Gadi Eisenkot, made a point of saying that he is opposed to closures and sieges and that they are not effective. They are perhaps not even moral. But in any event, it seems as if the Israeli government is so desperate and frustrated that for public relations purposes, it has now closed the village. It will not be for long. And coincidentally, the weather is so severe that the very road leading to both the village and the settlement has now been closed due to the snow. So obviously, it will take only a few hours and the siege will be lifted. Apparently, there is no solution to this crisis. Can
we expect an escalation following this move?
No escalation because there is no one to hit in retaliation. These two teenagers have decided upon themselves. Perhaps they were incited, as the Israeli government has been saying, but they were not sent by any organization as far as we know. Maybe they were helped by some of their neighbors or relatives. But then again, it seems to be usually self-motivated, and therefore there is no reason to escalate.
As characterized in the recent wave of violence. Amir Oren, thank you very much for joining us. In other world news, peace talks aimed at ending the Syrian civil war will be conducted this coming Friday in Geneva. The UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura made the announcement a short while ago, marking another international attempt to bring the violent crisis to an end. I-24 News' Danny Swibel has the story.
Syrian peace talks meant to begin this week were stalled Monday, partly over the question of who would represent the opponents of President Bashar al-Assad. It is now believed the talks aimed at ending the Syrian civil war that has killed 250,000 people and driven more than 10 million people from their homes will take place this coming Friday in Geneva. UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura made the announcement a short while ago.
The line is, and the Security Council has been clear, no preconditions, at least to start the talks. Now we have only one intra-Syrian talk about governance, about constitutional review, and about future elections, hopefully starting with discussing first what is the most urgent thing for the Syrian people.
Reports have surfaced that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry demanded that the Syrian opposition participate in the upcoming talks and threatened to stop U.S. military and financial aid to them if they do not. But the conditions of the Syrian opposition, such as cessation of airstrikes and the departure of the Syrian president from power, are still being discussed in Riyadh ahead of the upcoming talks.
No one can impose any pressure on us. I do not think John Kerry is exercising such pressures on the Syrian revolution or negotiators, because he knows full well that no one can impose or dictate the conditions to us.
The mainly Sunni Syrian opposition have expressed a certain degree of distrust for Kerry and are concerned any political solution will preserve Shiite Iran's dominance in the country. However, the U.S. has been eager to affirm its alliance with the Sunni Arab world, specifically with Iran's rival Saudi Arabia, perhaps as a token to prove it is trustworthy going forward.
The EU police agency Europol believes the Islamic State group has honed the ability to launch global attacks and is set to focus more on Europe following the Paris massacre. The Europol chief's comments came at a news conference today where he warned of new combat-style capabilities the Islamic State may have developed in recent months. While warning against an increased target on Europeans, the report played down fears that jihadists were smuggling themselves into Europe as refugees. The mosquito-borne Zika virus, which is linked to thousands of babies being born with underdeveloped brains across Latin America, is expected to spread to all countries in the Americas except for Canada and Chile. This according to the World Health Organization. And in the latest from the Oscars controversy, Chris Rock has no plans to quit as host of the evening in the wake of boycotts made by actors Spike Lee, Jada Pinkett Smith, and Will Smith. He has, however, vowed to address the all-white nominations list in his opening monologue. ABC News has more.
From TV producer extraordinaire Shonda Rhimes, responsible for Scandal, Grey's Anatomy, and How to Get Away with Murder.
Women are smart and strong. They are not sex toys or damsels in distress.
Strong words this weekend at the Producers Guild Awards on the need to create diverse characters in entertainment that reflect reality.
People of color are not sassy or dangerous or wise, and believe me, people of color are never anybody's sidekick in real life.
Her speech in accepting the PGA's Norman Lear Achievement Award for television, part of an industry-wide conversation about inclusion, kick-started this time by the Oscar nominations, where for the second year in a row, none of the 20 acting nods went to a person of color. Last week, some industry figures planning to skip the Oscars, including Will Smith.
This is about children that are going to sit down and they're going to watch this show, and they're not going to see themselves represented.
Friday, new initiatives from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to double the number of Oscar voters who are women and minorities by 2020, increase the diversity of the Academy Board of Governors, and place new limits on the voting privileges of members who haven't remained active in movie making. Academy President Cheryl Boone Isaacs saying these new measures will have an immediate impact. Nominee Matt Damon backing her.
This was a strong first step for Cheryl Boone Isaacs, though. I thought she did something fast and bold, and that was what we needed.
And producer of the Oscars, Reginald Hudlin, reaffirming Chris Rock's participation, eager to address all the issues, with Rock said to have told him, "I'm throwing out the show I wrote and writing a new show."
A sad ending to a long journey. Explorer Henry Worsley has died at the age of 55 after suffering exhaustion and dehydration during an attempt to cross Antarctica. The ex-Army officer was 30 miles short of his goal of becoming the first person to cross the continent unaided. In a message published before he was airlifted to Chile for treatment, Worsley wrote he was sad to report the journey's end, so close to his goal. Tributes have already begun to pour in, including from the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William, and footballer David Beckham. And a new controversial mural by British graffiti artist Banksy has appeared near the French embassy in London, highlighting the alleged use of tear gas on refugees from the so-called jungle camp in Calais. An added touch is a barcode that links to YouTube footage claiming to show police raids of the camp earlier this month. Banksy's identity has still never been confirmed, but he is known to have painted late Apple founder Steve Jobs as a refugee on a Calais camp wall, referring to Jobs' heritage as the son of a migrant from Syria to the United States. And that's all the time we have. Join us again at the top of the hour.